Hi, I'm Alvina Ling.
And I'm Grace Lynn.
And we're book friends
forever!
We're childhood friends
who grew up to be
a children's book editor
and an author and illustrator. Yay! Welcome to Book Friends Forever. This is the Vocation versus Jobs and Visiting Old Worlds with guest host Laurel Snyder, or guest co-host. Check out our website, bookfriendsforever.com, and our Instagram handle at bookfriendsforever_podcast. Now, as you can tell from the episode title, I have a guest co-host today. Alvina is on vacation, so I asked my author friend, Laurel Snyder, to step in. Laurel, before we get to how we've been doing, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. And thank you so much for having me. I'm a longtime, in addition to being other things, I'm a longtime listener of the podcast and have been very grateful for it. So I'm especially honored to be here today. And my background is I'm a poet since I was a little girl. I think of myself always as a poet first, but I do write a lot of picture books. Some of my recent picture books include Endlessly Ever After, which is a sort of choose your own adventure, or I'm not supposed to say that, pick your path fairy tale collection with Dan Santat, and Shrinking Violet with Lei Wen Pham. And my next picture book is called, we changed the name so I have to remember it. It is called I Need My Lewis, and it is a picture book with Vera Broskell about a blanket who has lost his little boy. So those are my picture books. And then I also do middle grade novels. And probably, I think we're going to talk about it today, so I'll mention probably my best known middle grade novel is Orphan Island.
So how long have you been publishing?
My first book for kids came out in 2008, but as I said, I started as a poet, so I had a couple of very small batch collections that came out before, like in 2006, 2007. But I've been publishing since college in like literary magazines and things like that. And I would say that I've been publishing since I was 9 years old, because I started out, as many of us did, and this kind of goes into the conversation today, by stapling little pieces of paper together and, making covers out of tinfoil.
So writing forever, like so many of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great. Okay, so now we'll talk about the past week. So let's see, I'll just talk about what I've been up to. Let's see, this past week, it's been pretty quiet for me professionally. I'm kind of hit that lull where like I'm starting to sit and I'm writing, which is great creatively, but there's always a part of me that's like, oh, nobody's talking about my books or cares about you kind of feel like you're starting to become invisible in the greater scheme of things, especially because like ALA is going to happen and there's so much buzz going on about all the things that's going to happen at ALA and all the authors and the illustrators that are going to be there. And then I have this FOMO, like, I'm not going to be there. Do I not exist? But it's still, so I feel a little sad about that. But that's kind of the life of being an author. But personally, it's been pretty full. My daughter Hazel had her last day of school on Monday.
Oh, wow.
It was her last day of middle school. So after this, I'm officially a parent of a high schooler, which I'm not ready for.
No, you're not.
And also to end the school year, she got her silver award for Girl Scouts. So Hazel has been a Girl Scout for a while now. And it's really funny because if you ever meet Hazel, she's not the stereotypical Girl Scout. She's kind of like an emo Girl Scout.
And she's a real cool Girl Scout.
But she's still in it all the way because she did a silver award project. That's one of the big awards that you can go for at her level. And the next one after is the gold award, which is quite difficult to achieve. But she achieved her silver award. She did a project about, she created these basins for amphibians to help them survive drought.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite it was pretty intense, but it was really fun. But there was this big silver gold ceremony in Worcester where like all the Girl Scouts who achieved their Silver Award and Gold Award
Mhm.
presented their award and gave a brief summary of their project. And I have to say, it was just really, really touching and inspiring to see all these girls with their projects and things that like, and it's like some of them were big 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 projects like that had like a reach like globally. Like there was one Girl Scout who won her gold award, who did this thing called the Period Project, which was like sending menstruation supplies as well as providing like menstruation education to like rural villages in India, like really big
Wow.
things like that. And then you had um, Girl Scouts who had smaller, maybe smaller reach projects, but still like there's a girl who built what she called a catio. So like her local pet shelter or didn't have an outdoor space for the cats
Right.
that were in the shelter, so she like built a catio so the cats that were in the shelter could go outside, and like somebody saw that there was this on this trail there was no place to sit, so people who like might be disabled would have a hard time, and she got a bench built, like things that were like smaller reach but still making a difference. It was just like really lovely to see all these girls making a difference. And it was kind of nice seeing how even the small things mattered a lot as well as the big things. So,
That's so
and they were all
cool.
being rewarded. And I thought that really like kind of touched my heart. And it made me feel like, you know, these kids are going to be okay.
Yeah, I feel like Girl Scouts is an organization that I feel sad when I hear these stories because I was a brownie long, long ago and didn't love it. Like,
Yeah.
I did not work as a brownie. And I think I grew up with like a misunderstanding of what Girl Scouts was and thought like I saw myself as like an outsidery, artsy kind of kid. And now when I look back, knowing what I know about Girl Scouts as an adult, I feel like I just misunderstood it and it like kind of missed the boat. Like I really could have found my people there if I had understood. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it all depends on who your scout leader is too, because I remember being a brownie and it was just like decorating cookies and it was
Yeah.
like, and that was fun, but like it was just, I was like, okay. It didn't seem like there was much more to it than that,
Yeah, and
but
it felt like the patches were like pretend. Like it was
yeah,
like it's like you put some band-aids in a box and you call it a medical kit and now you
yeah,
get the nursing or whatever. It didn't feel real, but when I see what the kids now do, it just seems
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, like I said, I think it depends on your scout leader. Like, because the scout leader that Hazel has, I remember her saying that when she's like, I became a scout leader because I wanted to make sure that uh, these girls don't have a Girl Scout experience like I did. We're gonna learn how to build fires. We're gonna learn how to
Oh,
like
that's
throw
awesome.
axes. And I was like, okay. And that was just like Hazel's like, yeah.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
So it worked out really well. But anyway, how have you been?
So similarly, I am not going to ALA this year,
Which
and
is why you're the perfect co-host.
it's sort of a weird one, although it's interesting. It's same and different. So two things are specific to my situation. One is I actually have a Sydney Taylor honor this year. I've been offline for over a month now. Like I've been completely off social media. So I totally forgot. Like I had to make a video to send into the Sydney Taylor and
Mhm.
everything, but I totally forgot that it was even happening. And then people were sending me like pictures of like my video at the award ceremony because the AJL goes before the
Oh,
ALA.
okay.
So people were like sending me congratulations, Laurel stuff. I'm like,
Aw.
and then I'm getting the like, are you going to be at ALA? And on the one hand, I'm sad not to be there. Obviously, it's always fun. And on the other hand, like you said, I'm in the lull and I've actually kind of been enjoying the lull because I'm not online, so I'm not feeling the FOMO of seeing everybody else who's going to go.
Yeah.
So there's a very stark lesson for me this year, which is that if you're not in social media when things are happening that you're not included in, they don't cause you any stress.
Yeah. You
So you
feel
also don't get to participate in the fun of it, the like, yay, but
you feel less invisible because you don't know that you're
I
invisible.
don't know that everybody else is visible. Right.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
true.
So it's been an interesting month and that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
That's
that's my professional week this week. In addition to which, I was supposed to be starting a novel this week, and I did that thing you do when you start a side project because you don't want to start the main project. But so I ended up finishing something this week that I didn't even know I was going to do. So that was kind of good, is like when you trick yourself into doing something by not doing something else.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was my week. And then on the personal front, a kitten, I was saying earlier, a kitten came into my life this week. Somebody delivered me a kitten that had gotten thrown out of a car window.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so
it's a
glad
really
that they
sad
found a nice
story.
home with you then.
Yes. So it is here now, has been fully vetted. We have a wonderful program here in Atlanta. I don't know how national it is, called Lifeline,
Hmm.
where you can friendly foster through your shelter and then they pay for the vetting and all the care, but you take care of it so that they don't need to. Basically, it's to create more space for the animals outside
Yeah.
the shelter.
Mhm.
And so I've done this a couple times before. So I'm friendly fostering this kitten that turned up.
Oh,
That's
that's
actually been very fun and
you
sweet.
need a
And
catio.
I probably do need a Girl Scout with a cat.
I'll get the Girl Scouts on it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, for this week's episode, we thought we'd talk about two topics. The first topic we thought about is vocation versus job. Now, Laurel, you kind of suggested this because
Yeah.
you said you listened to Sarah Czar's and Corey and Haidu's podcast, Still Writing. So do you want to
Yes.
introduce it a bit?
So they do this podcast, Still Writing. I've listened to Sarah Czar podcasts for as long as I can remember. Basically, she's been like a guiding light to me since I started in this business. And she was doing a podcast for a long time that I loved. And now she's doing this new one where basically what they do is every couple weeks they get together and just ask, are you still writing? And it's sort of a way of nodding at the fact that life is complicated and there's all these ebbs and flows and sort of stages to the career in a creative job. And it's sort of just to check in and literally be like, are you still writing? And then they always say yes, but then there's context of like, well, my day job is requiring this, or I have a sick kid, or I was frustrated, or I'm reading this great book. And I just find it an interesting mix of the personal. I really like things where we see like the person, as with your podcast, like where you see the intersection of the personal and the professional. So this week, Sarah had experienced a loss, and it had made her think about vocation, about like sort of when we go into writing for this lofty goal of making art, whatever it is, making art. It might be a spiritual thing or a creative thing. It might be a connection to another human being. Like there's all sorts of reasons why you might be drawn in. But most of us didn't start out to become children's authors or poets or whatever because we thought it was like the fastest way to make a buck, you know?
Yes, that's true.
So they were just talking about, and sort of, I recommend that anybody listening to this podcast might also enjoy their podcast and go listen to that too. But it just made me think in my own life, I've been navigating, I think as we all do, that question that is particularly pertinent when you get to stages in your career where you've kind of cleared the bar of something you wanted to accomplish or missed the bar of something that you wanted to accomplish or something changed in your life or it's not really as sustainable as a profession or financially anymore. And then you kind of ask yourself, well, like, would I still do this? And as you and I have discussed in the past, I've been thinking a lot lately about retirement and about what it would mean to retire as an artist, as a writer. And I don't know. So that was sort of where I entered the conversation was like, oh, like like if I had all the money in the world and would I retire from publishing? Would I retire from writing? Those are two
Hmm.
very different questions. So that
Yeah.
was sort of I was thinking of it in terms of like what was it when I started writing? What was it when I was like in high school or in college or when I started publishing and now? And like what is the balance? What about you?
Yeah.
What does it make you think of?
Well, I think it's interesting because you were talking about the retirement. Well, I'll go backwards because we'll start at the end. When you're talking about retirement, and I remember having this conversation with other authors about like what does retirement look for you as an author or as an illustrator, you know? And so many of them were like, well, retirement looks like freedom to me, you know, like doing
Uh-huh.
whatever books I want to do. And what was striking to me when they said that was like, well, honestly, you can do that now. You know, like
Right.
like um and you don't need to wait for a special time to do that. I mean I mean practically, yes, like in terms of like finances and stuff like that. But so it reminds me of this old story. Um where there's this fisherman in China, or maybe it's Thailand. I actually don't remember where, but we'll just say China. There's a fisherman in China who every day he catches a net full of fish, and then he spends the rest of the day relaxing on the beach with his family, right? And one day a tourist comes and says, "Oh, you know what? You should not just fish in the morning. You should fish in the morning and the evening. Get two nets of fish, and then you sell it." And he's like, "Okay." And then what would I do? Then when you after you sell it, you get a bigger boat. It's like after you, and he's like,
Right.
"Okay, then what I do?" And then you get a bigger boat, then you get like four nets of fish. You can sell it, and then you can get even bigger boat, and then you can have a whole, like slowly bigger, 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 and then you
Right.
can have this huge conglomerate, and then you'll have so much money. And then the fisherman said, "And then what do I do?" And then he said, "And then you can sit on the beach with your family and enjoy your life." And
Uh-huh.
he's like, "Well, I can do that now."
Yeah, that's a really good lesson. Yeah. Uh, well, I mean, and I think you're right, and also it's not always
It's not
true,
as
right?
easy. Yeah.
That like and some of this is about the privilege of like how are you writing? What are you getting for it? Like just for some people, maybe being more successful makes it harder because the more money you make from your work, the more you expect to make from your work, the more
Yeah, the
you
more you
build
depend on
like
it.
like the fisherman, you build your life on that,
Yeah.
right? So like I am fortunate not to be making lots of money. Um, but I definitely feel like there have been points where I felt like I was cornered into certain kinds of work or maybe an editor's expectations or an agent's expectations, or but often just my own sense of like honestly like social media conversation, like what's selling or like what do
Yeah.
you have to do to take the next step or like other people's best practices. And there have been a couple points in time where I got to a place where I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'd rather just go get a day job, like whatever. And I've gone and gotten day jobs or I've taken on a bunch of work for hire, things like that. And one of those times was actually when I wrote Orphan Island. I had told my agent I was done and I wasn't going to do it anymore. And then I
Hmm.
ended up writing this book longhand
Hmm.
because I was like, well, maybe if I write it longhand, it could feel like I'm just writing again. Like
Hmm.
maybe if I disconnect from the business end of it,
Hmm.
I can get back to why I wrote when I was 8 or 12 or 16 or 20.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's been a big thing for me is that the more like I do morning pages sometimes, I often write longhand, especially to start a project or with a picture book. Um, but like with a pencil on a pad, like that sort of I want it to feel as deprofessionalized as possible
Uh-huh.
because the joke is that in the long run for children's writers, I think the more you professionalize it, the further you get from things that are actually going to be appealing to children.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
so Orphan Island is my most successful novel, but it's the one that I wrote that I didn't think I could sell. So I
Uh-huh.
think sometimes we do a number on ourselves where we think the thing we can sell is like the best thing because it's the most like something somebody else has done or what's selling already. But in fact, it's still true a lot of the time that the thing that you think is unusual or that's specific to you is actually the thing that other people will enjoy the most.
It's it's interesting to me because I feel like when you talked in the beginning about vocation, and this is something that I've gotten away from in the last I would say 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years. But in the beginning, okay, so in the very beginning, for me, it was um I really wanted to make books. I really want to share my books with the world. But I also so that like I remember Alvina and I talk about how I would send her letters like going right at senior year of high school saying like my goal is to have to go well, somebody's going to go into the mall and go to the bookstore and see a bookshelf with a whole row of books and they'll all be by me. Like so like I've always wanted to do that. But
The
um
Graceland section of the Walden books.
yeah, exactly. Look, no Walden books anymore, unfortunately. But I remember when I first started publishing and realizing how difficult it was to publish Asian American books. All of a sudden, it became such a I guess that became the vocation for me. It became such a vocation, like I'm
Huh.
going to get Asian American books in, but like that was, and it became such a driving force for me. And it was, in some ways, it was kind of beautiful to be that single-minded
Yeah.
because to me, it was kind of like, oh well, like it's like that self-righteous feeling
Yeah.
where it's just like, oh well, if it does, like if it doesn't sell well, at least it's selling something, like at least it's out there, at least I'm putting a little coin into the world. But the truth is, and I'm don't, I hope people don't take this the wrong way. I'm super glad, but like in the last 10 years, with more and more Asian and Asian American authors out there, I don't feel that vocation as much. I'm like, oh, in some way, because that vocation
Yeah.
it was uh it was a gift, but it was also, I don't want to say burden, but it was pressure, it was
Yeah.
pressure. And so in some ways it's been great because I'm like, oh, well, the pressure is off. But also when I don't have that guiding light so much,
Right.
it does feel like I do feel a little bit like at a loss. I guess um this sounds, people are gonna, I'm not trying to be falsely humble here, but you know, there was a part of me that was like, well, I'm not really the bestest writer, and I'm not really the bestest illustrator, but I am somebody who can put these Asian books out there. So that was
Huh.
kind of made me feel like I was justified in being maybe not the most talented, but now I'm just like, well, I don't know.
So
Like,
it's so funny. I mean, you and I have had these conversations over the years, like your sense of everybody's internal self-perception and like the
yeah.
way others see them is just so different. Like there's a part of me that's like, well, the Newbery Committee and the Caldecott Committee might have something to say about that opinion, Graceland. But so I just went and looked up the word vocation because it occurred to me. I was like, you're thinking of vocation in a way that's very different than what I was thinking about. Like when I was literally thinking like vocation for me, and I don't think this is what it means, but in my head, it was like when you're 8 years old and you run to the page because you have to get something out. You have a
Okay.
feeling you're being like true to yourself. And like, and that the books we make, by the time you get all the other people's thoughts in your head, so part of it is like, why are you making it? But part of it is like, who are you writing it for? Like,
Hmm.
I write for me. I
Yep.
don't write for the kids. I don't write for the Jewish kids. I don't write for I write for little Laurel Snyder, who was 10 years old or whatever. So I went to look up vocation, and it says a vocation is a strong, intrinsic calling. Now, this is just I feel guilty saying this. This is the AI overview. But a vocation is a strong intrinsic calling or sense of dedication toward a specific career, way of life, or purpose. Derived from the Latin word vocare, to call. It encompasses not just how you earn a living, but how you uniquely contribute your passions and strengths to the world. So, what's nice about that is it's a really broad
Yeah.
definition, right? But it does feel like what unifies all of this is that like you feel called. And I
Yeah.
felt called to the page by my like 10-year-old anxiety or whatever. You felt called to fill a space that you saw that was empty on the bookshelf. Um,
Yes. I think I
in a
felt called to publish for that reason. Yeah.
yes. And right. And so maybe that's the thing for me is that the calling for me is to write. I also feel a desire to be read and to communicate and to share things with the world, but that's not the same as the desire to make money or to be successful.
Yeah.
So
I
maybe
think,
that's the separation for me is it's not about necessarily publishing, but publishing could be producing 20 copies at the copy store and giving them to my friends and family, maybe.
I think the truth is, and this is why I've always felt a little, whenever I get on a panel with other authors, I always feel a little strange, but I think that your call is to the writing, right? And
For
I'll get
sure.
on the panel with illustrators and their call will be to the art. And the truth is, I don't think that's my call. And that's why I've
Hmm.
always said, like, oh, I don't see myself as an author or an illustrator. I see myself as a storyteller, like somebody
Hmm.
who's telling, who's like creating these stories. And I think my call is to share the story, like so it's not really so much calling to be published. Like that's not like that's
Right.
very, I feel like my call is to share stories, right? And so,
Do you think if somebody called you tomorrow and said, Gracelyn, you're amazing. We would like to give you a channel and have you produce like this series of like convert books to film to create beautiful Asian movies. And it's going to be beautifully done and they're going to be amazing. And it would be like another conduit that isn't books, but is something else. Do you think that would feel like like it fills the same
I'm
space?
not, um, I'm not sure. Because I remember thinking that. during COVID. Like right now, I would say not really, but then at the same time, I remember during COVID thinking like, oh, if I can't do books, what would I do? And I was like, I think I'll start a puppet show. And I was like, I'm gonna do like I'm gonna tell my stories through puppetry. Like I'm gonna start a puppet show. Like I started thinking about all these like kind of
Huh.
wackadoodle like things. So I guess the same thing, like a conduit. Like I think that my first love for sharing stories is books. But if I was not able to do that, then another vehicle would be a fine substitute for me. But I think that if I had my druthers, I would still always choose the book first.
So the only other thing I've ever really, really, really wanted, I mean, like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a ballerina and whatever. But the only other thing I've ever really wanted to do was be in a band. But I don't actually
Oh.
play musical instruments. So I actually made years and years ago when I wasn't writing, I made a demo of country songs that I wrote the lyrics, and then friends of mine who are musicians helped me produce it. That are You can find very, very bad versions of them floating around online sometimes. But it's the same. It's what we were saying. What I like to do is put words together, and when I couldn't write, I put words together. Like it's like the poems became songs instead of
Hmm.
stories, because I'm not really a storyteller. I just find ways to manipulate stories so that I can play with words.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I can tell. So, listeners probably already know this if you've listened a long time, but just in case you don't, Laurel, Kate Milford, and Jonathan Oxier and I are in a little writers group together. And so in our writers group, I can really feel the difference, and it's so good because I think it makes me a better writer. But like I can tell, like you just love words, like and you love putting all the words together and how they form together and that's so not what I do
No, yeah, it is
naturally.
interesting how
No,
we're all
no,
so
that's not what I
different.
do naturally. Like that's not my fun place. Is like, oh, how about if I move tinker over here and tinker over
Yeah,
there? Like that's not like my fun place at all. And I think that's what's so interesting about how we're all kind of different writers, but I guess in some ways is kind of what makes me realize that my dedication is more to story and not to writing.
right. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah.
That's probably also why I'm not a huge fan of like books in verse, like because like you are a poet, so you feel those things like I'm like I like the books in verse, but I just feel like it's a Cliff Notes version of the
I'm like
story.
making faces to not say I actually don't like books in verse
Oh.
either very much, but I feel bad about it. It's every now and then I love one, but a lot of them I think are, well, this is a whole other conversation. But I
Yes.
feel like a lot of them are kind of, often they just feel kind of random.
Yeah, there's some books in verse that are beautiful, and I like I said, but they're not my favorite thing to
Yeah.
read, and I think it goes to what I was saying. It's like sometimes I just feel like, oh, it's just like I'm reading the Cliff Notes. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
got the
yeah.
story.
Right. Well, and maybe they don't, in sort of doing both, maybe they don't satisfy either one of us because they're not heavy on story and they're not heavy on
The
honestly, most of them are not so carefully wrought as poetry. It's
Mhm.
that they're sort of doing both at the same time. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. I've never thought about it that way.
Huh. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, so maybe I should feel a kinship with books and verse because I feel like it's kind of like they're not 100% poetry and they're not 100% story, just like I'm not 100% illustrator,
Oh,
not 100% like writer. So I shouldn't put those books and verse down. Sorry,
no
books and verse.
shoulds.
I give
No
you a new
shoulds.
respect.
No shoulds. All right.
All right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of uh, vocation versus job?
I don't think so. I think the main thing is that to me, it's funny because neither one of them is something you have a lot of control over, right?
Yeah.
Like you're drawn to something artistically or you're controlled by market forces and commodification. That
Yeah.
like you're this thing in the middle. And I think that we should be kind to ourselves. And I often think like I can make things for art, love, or money, but very rarely can I do anything for all three. And that like you just can't beat yourself up when
Yeah.
the things you love to make aren't making money or the things you have to do for money aren't things you love.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about vocation to me, it's like sometimes it's a comfort to me, in terms of like, uh, in terms of like this is the meaning. I don't need to worry. Like if if the book doesn't do well, like this is okay. It's like that's my comfort. But other times, honestly, it's almost like a pressure, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, is this book good enough to be my vocation? Like does this really feel like a book that shows a vocation? So like it's one of
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that
It's no fun when the book that isn't going to make a lot of money also doesn't get the great reviews. And you're like, well, it's neither.
so so I think using vocation as a tool to help keep you going is the best thing. And if it doesn't help, then just put it to the side.
Yeah, I think yes, take what serves you for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's switch gears and
Okay.
let's talk about our second topic, which is revisiting old worlds. Now, this is a really fun topic for both of us because I am writing what is tentatively called Tale of the Goldfish Man, which Alvina does not like that title, but I like it. But it'll probably change. Anyway, the Tale of the Goldfish Man is revisiting the world of my book, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. Um, which is really exciting for me. And I know you are writing a sequel to your book, Orphan Island.
Which
So,
is not technically announced yet, so I might get in
oh,
trouble for this, but I don't,
oh,
I'm not, no, no,
sorry.
no, no, no. I feel like I've done this on your podcast before. I'm like, once I start talking, um, but I'm right, whatever may or may not happen, I am writing it. So
Okay. All
nobody's
right.
allowed to tell me that I'm not.
So, are you allowed to talk about how it came about? Like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So, how
Yeah. I
did
mean,
this come about?
nobody gets to tell me how to write my book. I'm trying to do
This is your
better at it.
vocation.
Yes, because it's my vocation. That's exactly right. It's my vocation. Yeah. So I always said I would never write this book. And for those who don't know, Orphan Island is a book about nine kids who live alone on an island, and once a year, a boat arrives at the island with a very young child in it who has to get out on the island, and then the oldest kid on the island gets in the boat and disappears. So because they arrive when they're so young, they don't know where they come from or where they go, and they just all have to do this thing. I think of it as like, but like Lord of the Flies, but nice. Nobody really knows what's happened. So because of that, because it's so ambiguous, people are very curious about it. And so I get a lot of emails from people or questions at conferences or whatever, like, are you going to do a sequel? And I've always said I wouldn't. I had no interest in it. At one point, I said that I was thinking about a prequel, and I started to write a prequel, and then we decided not to publish it. Um, and then a few years ago, I was in Rochester at a school visit, and these kids had done like a grade wide read or something. There was like a lunch bunch of kids that got to have lunch with me who had done like a really deep study and really done the work. There's a lot of like secrets in this book. There's a lot of puzzles that people do or don't pick up on, but these kids had picked up on everything and sort of had questions for me that I don't want to say here because I don't want to give them away, but like about things that not everybody understands about the book. And I found myself thinking, okay, if there are kids who've done all that work and they really, really get it, and they still really want that sequel, but the other missing piece is and I don't want to get again too into this, but the backstory of the book, some of the reasons why the island is the way it is and why the kids are there have to do with things that are very timely in this moment, some of the things that are happening globally in the world. And I just found myself thinking like, man, like I couldn't have seen the things that were coming 10 years ago when I wrote the book. But it feels like, not that it solves anything or answers anything, but it just feels like this is a generation of kids for whom these questions and these conversations might be especially interesting or apt. And like why wouldn't I write that book? Like if the kids who read it the most really still want it, and there are things that I have that I might like to say to them about the world that they're currently living in, why would I not write that book? And so I sort of that was like maybe 3 years ago. And I've been sitting with it and sitting with it and sitting with it. And it's this is the vocation thing, right? Like I wasn't going to write the book. I didn't want to write the book. There was no reason to write the book. And now a decade has passed almost. So like there's no marketing or like the publishing, like they're going to have to figure out how to sell a book to a bunch of kids that read a book 10 years ago or a bunch of grown-ups or whatever. Like the marketing plan for this is going to be so confusing. But if the book were to exist, which we have not contracted for yet, but it just felt like a really special individual thing. And the seed had sort of been planted, and the more I sat with it and resisted it, and the more I sat with it and resisted it, the more the world sort of started to build. And so that was sort of what but that was sort of my thought when I suggested this as a topic today, is just that thing that happens of like, the world was there 10 years ago, and then I went away from it, and then I wasn't connected to it, and I didn't feel like I was deeply tied to it, and I wasn't sure how I would get back to it. And then for like the last couple of years, I've been sitting with this idea, and the world is sort of layers upon layers, or sort of like the silt is
Uh-huh.
building. And so that's where I am right now with it, is that I've been sitting with it and sort of scribbling things in a notebook and imagining a story, and then deciding that's not the story. And so it's been a lot of like imagining it, throwing it away, imagining it, throwing it away, and a little bit gets left behind each time I throw it away.
Mhm.
And now I'm sort of ready to sit down and do the thing.
That's
Um,
exciting.
what about, yeah,
Wait,
no,
oh, so
it feels really good.
two questions about it. How long have you been away from the world of Orphan Island?
I've never gone back to reread it. I have it on audio right now. I thought I might listen to it, but
Uh-huh.
that's part of what I wanted to ask you about actually,
Uh-huh.
is like there's part of me that feels like I should just dive in, because the character, this will be a book that picks up right where the last book left off, but she's gone through a huge moment, a huge transitional moment. She's not going to arrive where she's going. She's not going to arrive the same. And
Mhm.
so there's a part of me that feels like I feel like I can feel her right now. I feel like I know who she is right now. And that maybe the best thing to do is just to dive in and write this book and then go back and read the first book.
Uh-huh.
And another part of me feels like, no, that's silly. Like, obviously, I can take that first journey with her and then move forward with
Mhm.
it. But so yeah.
Then I was going to ask you another question that I forgot because I got so interested in what you
Yeah,
were
no,
saying. It'll
it's
come
been
back
a
to
really
me.
weird journey. What about you?
Yeah, so for Tale of the Goldfish Man, it's actually an idea I had soon after I wrote When the Sea Turned to Silver. And but it's not like I always thought. Actually, let me backtrack. I always thought I would write the story of the Goldfish Man. I've always thought like, oh, he's somebody who has so many things must be so interesting. I mean, he gets to live to 99 years, like there must be so many interesting things about him.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I always put it off and put it off and put it off. And I think there was a part of me that kind of felt like I had finished Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, Starry with the Sky, When the Sea Turned to Silver, and I felt like it felt really complete, and
Yeah.
I felt like I don't want to like it feels like that's the way it should be, and I don't want to like go into it and let it like ruin a good thing,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
ruin what I had completed. But then but I think in 2029, sorry, is the 20-year anniversary of Where the Mountain Meets the Sea.
Wow.
Yeah,
20.
and so I was talking to Alvina about it, and I was like, oh gosh, like this, I have so much love for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. It really changed my whole the career my the trajectory of my whole career was changed by that. I feel like before Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, I was like Grace Lynn, multicultural author and illustrator, and then uh winning the Newbery Honor, it was like Grace Lynn, Newbery Honor, and then all of a sudden everybody was like willing to give me a shot. Before then, I feel like they're like, oh well, if we need an Asian book, then maybe we'll read
Right,
it.
right, right.
And so I feel so much gratitude towards that book, and of course to the Newbery Committee for that. Um, and it just I just felt like I feel like I should do something special for that book. And I remember Alvina was saying, well, you have always talked about maybe going back and doing that Goldfish Man book. Maybe this is the time. If there's ever
Yeah.
a time, this is it. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. And so I thought, okay, I'll do it. At first I thought the thing is that when I had first thought of it, I thought it was like, okay, I'll just make a little novella, like it'll be like a short little thing, and we'll put it out in 2028. It'll be like, oh, I thought like maybe even a throwaway kind of thing.
Oh,
But then of course, Alvina's like, yeah, 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 sure. And then of course, when I start writing it, I'm like, oh, what I thought was going to be like 20,000 words,
yeah.
it's going to be like 50, it's going to be like a whole thing. And and all of a sudden my ambition for it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm like, when I first told Alvina about it, I was like, yeah, and maybe it won't have any color pictures. Maybe we'll just have like black and white. And of course, now I'm writing, I'm like, oh, now I need full page spreads. Like it's like all of a sudden it just blew up. So I'm really excited about it. What was interesting, because you talked about listening to Orphan Island again,
Mhm.
was that because I'm slotting it right after Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, it's going to take 5 years, takes place at 5 years after Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. Like I had to go in and do a whole time. I actually brought it to show you. So I had to do this whole, whoops, upside down, whole timeline. Like, and this is the way I do. Like
Wow.
most people do like normal timelines, but this is the way I do the timelines to make sure that all three books connected
Right.
in the right like order and like everybody's age and everything like
Right,
that.
right, right, right. Because you're going into the middle. That's
Yes, I'm
so
going to the middle
interesting.
and I'm making sure that and like how it connects to each of the books. And so it took me like 3 days to figure
Yeah.
this out. And
Did
like
you have to like sit down and reread, or did you go back to your notes? How did you?
So I kind of had an idea of what I wanted, and then I'd be like, wait, I need to double check that. And then I would go back to the books. Oh, I can't do that. And it'd be like so frustrating because I'd be like, oh no, I said he was old, not young.
Right,
So I was like, how does
right.
that work? I was like, that means he has to be someone's great grandfather, not father. So it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah. That's hard.
yes. But I finally got it to work. And the thing is that it it's just like I kind of because when I kind of had this idea a long time ago. So it kind of didn't, it kind of slipped in okay. It was just like when I wrote it, I wasn't paying that much attention. When I was writing Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and When the Sea Turned to Silver, I wasn't paying that much attention to like the ages and the generations. I knew like I wanted it to be roughly 2 generations after Where the Mountain Meets the Moon or roughly one
Right,
generation before, but like I wasn't really counting the numbers. Now I had to
right.
count and I was like, oh no.
Yeah. It's interesting though, like if you imagined it as a contemporary thing, you might be trapped by like June of 1987.
Yes.
And you know that like at least it has that sort of mythical
Yeah.
timeline to it.
And
And I was gonna say, so the thing that I feel like I've been learning as I've been imagining this project, um, is that the things sometimes I am more rigid in trapping myself by the details than
yeah.
actually is necessary. And so like as we were starting to have these conversations about this, I'd be like, well, it has to be this way. And my editor would be like, well, that's because of what you like, that's because of the story you told yourself that isn't actually in these books. Like
Yeah.
you're remembering it a certain way because you did a bunch of backstory building because it took
Hmm.
you years to write this book. But like you can lift that door. Like you can let yourself, like you can create the magic that will let you out of some of those corners that you've pinned yourself into.
Mm.
And what I realized is that the tool that I need is more imagination, bigger imagination. That like I've imagined my island in a very specific way with very specific limitations. And it like and I've imagined the rules of the world beyond it. And now we're going to start a book that takes place on a totally different place. I don't want to give it away, but like the boat goes somewhere and then the second book happens almost entirely on in that other place. The fact that I imagined it 10 years ago one way doesn't mean I have to abide by all those rules exactly now. And that what I can do is cast my imagination more like bigger and wider and
Yeah.
make the magic more rather than pulling myself tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's been really liberating to realize like, no, there are things in the book that I'm stuck to.
I
And then there's
know.
a whole lot of stuff that is still just in my head. And it's that weird thing that happens when you write a book where you don't realize the version that you ended up with isn't the version in your head, right? So kids will ask you a question, you'll be like, oh, I forgot I changed the name of that character.
Yes.
Or
Oh, the flowers are yellow, not
exactly, exactly. Like they
not
didn't
pink.
have chocolate cake. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing that well, I'm stuck with is that like the goldfish man has glass bowls, right? And so when I wrote Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, the first, like I'm like, okay, it's maybe the Qing Dynasty, they have glass bowls. But like
right,
now I'm
right,
like, oh wait, they would not have glass bowls back in like the
right,
Song Dynasty. And I'm just like, it doesn't work. But my husband's like, you have flying talking dragons,
right.
talking
Exactly,
goldfish. Like, I
exactly.
think people can make the jump that they had glass, like in this
Well,
magical fantasy world, they just happen to have glass at a much earlier timeline.
I always, right, no, exactly. This is a slant universe and it resembles our world, and you are allowed to do what you need to make it work in the service of story or
Yeah.
poetry or whatever. Even though there are going to be some kids that write to you and be
Like, which
wait
dynasty
a
is
minute.
this?
Um, but yeah, no, that's exactly what I mean by imagination. Cast your imagination bigger.
Yeah. It's like, okay, this I'm like, I'll put it in the author note. This is not historical China.
You know what's a really good reminder for that is I've had schools that do like a final chapter to Orphan Island
Hmm.
or like the whole grade, and then they'll do a presentation where they're like, this was my version of what happened after, and this was my version of what happened after. The things these kids come up with that are like, and then they all rode whales, or and then they went to the moon, or then like they had a pizza party, or whatever it is. And you realize like, oh, like we're grown-ups are so narrow. Like,
That's true.
so I think
So
that's
what's your
important.
biggest worry about doing the sequel?
I only ever have one worry, really. That's not true. Right now, I'm worried that my editor's going to get mad at me for talking about this. But my only have one worry, really, which is it really is. I write for my little girl self. Like I
Mm,
write for the self that I was. And as long as I think that she would love the book, it's okay if the reviews are bad, if the book doesn't sell, if my editor doesn't love it, like whatever.
hmm.
It's when I sell her out. It's when I make compromises that I know she wouldn't approve of, or I cheap it out, or I know I've been sloppy, whatever it is. Like if she would be upset by the glass bowls, I would be upset by the glass bowls. If she
Yeah.
wouldn't care, I wouldn't care. And she's helpful to me in that like there was my very first book was called Up and Down the Scratchy Mountains or The Search for a Suitable Princess. Nobody has read it because it came out in 2008 when the world fell apart. But or maybe for other reasons, but that is one reason I was given. But there's an illustration in the book that doesn't actually fit the text. And there were people that were upset about it at the time. There have been teachers that have been upset about it since. Laurel Snyder, as a child, loved few things more than catching mistakes in a book.
That's true.
And it was like my favorite thing to catch a mistake in a book. And I remember looking at that art and just smiling and being like, oh, this is the best part. Like, she's going to be so happy. So I think that's important to remember that, like, kids are not us. Kids are
Yeah.
not our editor or our reviewer or whatever. And for me, it's like, well, as long as I can check in with her. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing is like if I feel like I was lazy and did a bad job or whatever, I feel bad. But if I really feel like, yeah, she'd call this out.
Huh.
What about you? What's your biggest fear?
Um, my biggest fear is that I don't know how to put it. Like, I don't want to be too self-indulgent with this book. Like I really, I guess this goes back to what we were saying about our vocations, right? Because I think my big thing is like I don't want readers who loved Where the Mountain Meets the Moon to feel cheated um or feel like it wasn't it wasn't a good um a good continuation. It didn't
Yeah.
it doesn't belong in the trilogy, like. And I guess that's but I guess one of the things that I don't know how to put it without sounding like a real jerk. Okay, I'll say it and I'll
I've known you a
apologize.
long time, and I'm not sure I've ever heard you sound like a real jerk.
I feel like because of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, I feel like the publisher is willing to give me a lot of leeway
Mm.
um with this, and I think in some ways that makes me so happy because it's like, yay, I can have so much creative freedom.
But there's
But
pressure there. Like,
not just pressure, but I feel like I feel like the books that um resonate with me the least are books that I feel like the author was really self-indulgent. Like you could tell they're having a great time, but
huh.
but I can't understand what they're getting at, like,
Mm.
so like, um, and that's why I say it's the difference between like the vocation and the like my thing is like the storytelling. Like
Totally. That makes 100% of sense. And that would never even like that doesn't bother me at
You
all.
see,
Like
and
I
like
might
that.
not like the book, but I would never, it's like, well, it's their book. They can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah. And so I mean, so that's what and I don't and some and like I said, sometimes that's fine. And I think that it's not important whether or not that is an issue. But for this book, I feel like I don't want that to be an issue. Does that make sense?
Totally. And it is a weird situation to have to be following up something where you know there will be a certain number, like there's a certain security in it following a book that you know is going to create sales. So
I
they
hope so.
might let you
Yeah.
get away.
Cross
They
that.
might let you get away with something,
Yeah.
like. But here's a question I have for you. I've never written a sequel except for the Charlie and Mouse books. It's not something I've ever done or felt especially inclined to do. I have some companion books, but like people could read one without even knowing they were related. Um, did you feel when the other two came out, did you feel that pressure?
Um, this book, actually, they're all standalones. Even this one, Tales of the Goldfish Man, is not a sequel. So they're all like companion books because When the Sea Turns to Silver takes place two generations
No,
after, and
but
then
they're
this,
in the same world.
yes, same
They
world.
sell them as a like box set
Yes,
basically.
they
Like
so did I feel the same pressure? I think in a different way. I remember When the Sea Turned to Silver. I remember I had written it and then I had written it for like 3 years and then I went back to the drawing board because I was at a school visit and originally I was not going to put Min Lee in the book and I told the kids that and
and
this
they were upset.
they were so upset with me.
Oh.
And they're like, why not? And I was like, it'll be too hard. And then I felt really guilty. I was like, what? Too hard. I'm like, stop being so lazy. Like, it
Right.
kind of made me feel like I was just being lazy when I was like, it's too hard. And I was like, there must be a way. And then, and then I did, and I was like, there is a way. I just need to think about it. And um,
Huh.
so I'm not sure that, yeah.
But I think the question stands. I mean I know they're not sequential, but
Yeah.
like in that way, but I guess what I'm asking is that they create an expectation,
Yes. I
right?
guess, oh, I see.
The kid who reads one is going to read theoretically all of them. And this is
Hopefully, yeah.
to go back to our first section of the conversation. This is both a vocation and a
Yeah.
like a commodification question, right? The publisher's going to sell it, if not as a sequel, it's going to sell it in the world of.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, did the other books feel hard in that way, or like that created pressure in that way? Or I don't know,
Um,
there was a standard that would have been different if you were just starting something completely different.
I think the Starter of the Sky was written pretty close to after Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, meaning like it hadn't been it hadn't been successful yet. So
Uh-huh. Right.
like
So it was like a normal sequel.
yeah, so it was just like a
Or not
normal,
sequel,
but
yeah.
normal like in the world. So I didn't feel it so much there. I didn't feel I honestly it was kind of a blessing when I was writing When the Sea Turned to Silver. I was so overwrought with my personal life because that's when Hazel was born. And I remember like writing in the bathroom and like doing all these things just to try to get around writing while she was like this little baby. So like I think I was just so overwrought with personal stuff that like I didn't have the bandwidth to even think about like the pressure. But now Hazel's 14 and like now I have the space to think about these other pressures. So I guess that's what it's like. Those internal slash external pressures can be a gift and a
Yeah.
burden.
No, there's a lesson in that.
Yeah. How about you? Do you feel the pressure of like expectation?
Not like that. I feel like it's been so many years and it didn't win that kind like it did well, but it's not the same kind of sort of iconic book, I don't think. I don't think it has the same expectations on it. Um, no, I think my expectations are at this point all internal. I yeah, it's really just I'm in my head about making sure all the pieces fit and then that I write it well enough. And I feel like as long as the pieces fit, and I'm getting to that point in the process.
Uh-huh.
I've been gathering details for so long now that
Mhm.
the best part, right? Where
Uh-huh.
you start to feel like, well, wait a minute, like I forgot if the bottle is on the shelf in that room and then this happens, then what's in the bottle is obviously X, like that thing where the pieces start to move on their own for you.
Yeah,
And I was scared that that was not going to happen, I think, but now that I can feel there will be other frustrating moments, but now that I can sort of feel the world swirling together and the pieces coming together on their own, like I know the material is there and it's just a question of making myself sit down and do it.
yeah, that's the big thing, just sitting down to do it.
Well, this is why I haven't been online for a month. Like I was like, I really just need to give myself like my full brain
Yeah.
as much as like life will allow. I need to give myself my full brain. So
Yeah, I understand. All right. Okay. So, well, that was awesome. I think we should probably start closing up. Okay.
definitely.
So, let's end as we always do with what we're grateful for. Laurel, what are you grateful for?
I have lots of things to be grateful for, so it feels bad to say this in answer, but the thing I am most grateful for in my life right now is that I bought an electric bike and it has transformed my life. It's actually in the shop right now because I've ridden it so hard it needed to go in for some work. But it has not only, I don't think I've said this yet. It is not only like a mode of transportation. We have this amazing thing in Atlanta called the Beltline. It's this big pedestrian sort of path. And I can get all these places without having to deal with traffic. So I get on my electric bike and I go, 6 miles and I can get to the grocery store or whatever, but I don't have to deal with cars. And it's faster than a car. It's more pleasant than a car. It's exercise. It's just magical. But the coolest thing is that my friend Mark and I have started. I was like, I wonder if I could ride all the way to the museum, which is like in Midtown Atlanta. So once a week, we now have an accountability group on Wednesdays. He takes the transit. Neither one of us is using a car. He takes transit and walks. And then I use my electric bike to take the Beltline to the park and then through the park. And we meet in the museum and we both got museum memberships. And then we go sit in the museum and write for a couple of hours and
Wow,
have a
good for
coffee.
you.
So it's like I'm getting exercise. I'm not driving my car. I'm writing with my accountability partner. I bought a museum membership. I'm going to see museum exhibits once a week.
Uh-huh.
And then like it just feels like I'm like every
Aw,
piece of it is a magical thing.
it's
So it's
perfect
been this really
retirement.
yeah, no, it's been this wonderful reminder that like your world is full of things you're not taking advantage of.
Yeah, that's so
So,
awesome.
what about you,
Yay.
Grace? What are you grateful for?
Well, first I want to say like it sounds like you're already living the ideal retirement life in some ways when we're talking about retirement.
I mean, in its best moments, our job, like when you're doing it, I should say for people listening, my youngest child left for college last year. So I've had this very transitional year where I'm sort of trying to figure out what life looks like. I don't want to stop writing and I don't want to stop publishing books necessarily, but it is a magical thing to kind of get to this place where you're like, well, as long as the money and the body hold out, I'm not sure that I would want things to be different than they are right now. I just want them less stressful. Like, I want to find exactly things like the bike. I want to find ways to make my life simpler and easier and more relaxed so that I sleep better. But yeah, like if that's what retirement is, then that's great. That doesn't mean that all the days, like also our car died last week, and so now we had three drivers and one car for a while, and then my bike was really important, and I got stuck in a rainstorm. So every day is not like that. But yeah, no, it's been fantastic.
So let's see. I'm super grateful for actually the weather has been really nice here, honestly. It's been hot, but not like humid. So it's been like the nice breeze and everything like that. So I've been able to run in the morning, which has been really great.
Nice.
But I think the thing I'm most grateful for is that we made it through middle school with Hazel.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
huge accomplishment.
yeah, and she seems to still like us mainly. She still doesn't talk to us, but she doesn't hate us. She seems to be willing to exist in our presence.
That's, I'm sorry, if you get to the eighth grade and you feel that way, that's pretty special, I think.
So, yeah, so I'm really grateful that we made it through middle school, and I'm hopeful that we can make it through the next, oh, gosh, 4 years and then it's college. So, gosh, and I'm really grateful that I can still make books because we got college coming up. So, yes, I'm super
Well,
grateful that people are still reading my books and that I can still publish because when I think about that, I'm like, Okay, good. No, not retirement anytime soon for me.
Well, I'm also very grateful for your book, so I hope you don't retire anytime soon.
Aw.
I will say I think middle school in some ways is a lot. Even in the moments that high school is hard, they're so much more independent, and so in the spaces like when they need to take space for what, not because they hate you or something, but just like when they need to be more independent and take space, they physically can do it in ways that when they're in middle school, you're in this space where like they need independence, but you still have to drive them there.
Yeah.
So our experience anyway was that in high school, so much of the stuff was just at the school and around the school, and their friends start to drive and so I found it easier in high school, but
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's it's not difficult right now. The most difficult thing is to find out what's going on in her life because
yeah,
she's such a
well,
closed book, but we trust that she's a pretty good book, so.
she seems like it to me.
All right. So that was our vocation versus job and revisiting old worlds with guest co-host Laurel Snyder episode.
Thank you
Thanks
so much for having me, Grace, and Alvina
Yay!
and Absentia.
Thanks for joining us. And thanks to Alex at Pacey Works Studio for editing this podcast. Please edit the podcast, Alex. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend about it. Tag us on social media using the hashtag BookFriendsForever or send us a message via Instagram at BookFriendsForever_podcast or via our website, bookfriendsforever.com. And join our Patreon. The link is in the show notes. I'm Grace Lynn, and you can find me at Pacey Lynn on Instagram and Threads, and author Grace Lynn on Facebook. Laurel, you're not on social media, but do you still want people to be able to find your Substack?
I have a Substack, although you know what? It's relatively new that I'm using it, and now I have to go check, and I don't know where it is, so maybe it'll be in the show notes. But I would love if people would follow my Substack, because I'm trying to, it feels like blogging again, so I'm really excited to be doing that again.
So if we just search for you on Substack, they should be able to find you, right?
Yeah, I think if you search for me, and then the Substack is called Because a Fire Was in My Head.
Okay, so Because a Fire Was in My Head, or search for Laurel Snyder.
Not good at SEO.
All right, so have a great week. Thanks for joining us, Laurel, and everyone, don't forget to read. Bye.
Don't forget to read.